In this day and age, in a world of plenty, it is difficult to understand how, all over the world, nearly 1 billion people are going hungry. This doesn't happen because there isn't enough for everyone. This happens because, while people are starving, we are wasting enormous amounts of grain to feed cows, pigs, chickens, and other animals so that we may satisfy our desire for meat, milk, and eggs. The earth can provide only so much food. While the human population is growing and growing, the tiny amount of land on which we can grow food is not. Because raising animals for food takes so much land, water, and other resources, the earth would be able to sustain only about 2 billion people on a meat and dairy-based diet. With a world population of nearly 7 billion people, it's easy to see that we need to find a better way. Vegan choices support a world where all may be fed. Vegan choices require only a fraction of the land and far fewer resources than what is needed to produce animal products. The equation is simple. The fewer animal products we consume, the more people we can feed. Vegan choices also promote your own health and the health of others. The #1 killers in the United States, heart disease and cancer, are conclusively linked to consuming animal products. Vegan choices work to make these diseases a rarity. Millions of people, instead of supporting disease and hunger, are taking personal responsibility. They are being the change they want to see in the world. Vegan choices conserve land, water, and energy. The United Nations found that raising animals for human consumption contributes to global warming more than all the planes, cars, and trucks on the planet combined. To feed and water farmed animals takes enormous amounts of water. To produce just 1 pound of meat requires on average 2,500 gallons of water. A gallon of cow's milk, 750 gallons of water. By simply making vegan choices, you can save over 1.3 million gallons of water every year. Many of us recycle paper because we want to save trees. But the #1 reason for cutting down trees, including the destruction of the rainforest, is to clear land to grow food for farmed animals. In just 1 year, a vegan saves a full acre of trees, equal to millions of pieces of paper. The billions of animals we raise for food not only use most of our water and eat most of our food, they poop most of it out. In the US, farmed animals produce 130 times more excrement than the entire human population, 86,000 pounds per second. Per second! That's enough to rebuild the Denver skyline every 24 hours out of poop. This concentrated slop pollutes our water, destroys our topsoil, and contaminates our air. Our oceans are dying. Industrial fishing has caused a global decline in fish populations to near extinction in most parts of the ocean. Massive nets miles long scrape the ocean depths and indiscriminately scoop up and suffocate everyone in their catch. Turtles, seals, dolphins, whales, and billions of struggling fish. And industrial fish and shrimp farms are creating environmental dead zones. Massive amounts of concentrated waste from these factory farms smother the ocean floor and choke the life from it. But it's not too late.
If you haven't had a heart attack yourself, you likely know someone who has. So I've got a secret to share. Things you need to know. Things your doctor may not tell you. You have some easy to remember adages about how people can decide what they should or should not eat.
We know what they shouldn't eat. That is dairy, meat, fish, and chicken. What do we want them to eat? We want them to eat all those whole grains for their cereal, bread, and pasta, beans, vegetables, yellow, red, green, and fruit.
The mantra is, eat nothing that has a mother or a face. Make a habit of high-fat, high-cholesterol meals like this, and you can physically see the beginnings of heart disease. For starters, your blood actually looks different. Here's a picture Esselstyn likes to show of a heart patient with a blocked coronary artery. And here's that same patient after going on a plant-based diet. You see the way the blockage has almost disappeared?
Starting in 2003, the U.S. government funded my team to test a totally vegan diet. I'm talking about no animal products at all, but it wasn't a low-carb diet at all. People could eat rice and pasta all they wanted, and it worked dramatically well, better than a more conventional diabetes diet. People lost weight, their blood sugars came down, their cholesterols fell, and they found it easier to follow this kind of diet because we didn't make them count calories. If a person already has type 1 diabetes, if you put them on a healthy vegan diet, that will reduce the likelihood of complications. There are researchers who now believe that one of the big triggers for type 1 diabetes is dairy products. It turns out that proteins in cow's milk, the body recognizes them as foreign proteins. The body makes antibodies to destroy them. Those same antibodies then destroy the insulin-producing cells in the pancreas. And there's a major study right now that's nailing down whether, if kids are breastfed and they are not given a cow's milk protein at all during infancy, that we might be able to reduce the risk of type 1 diabetes. The evidence so far says that's exactly right.
Vegan food is extremely rich in calcium and protein. There are at least 2 dozen plant-based foods that contain more calcium than animal milk. Some of them are leafy green vegetables, seeds like dill, ragi, almonds and other nuts, beans like rajma, peas like chana, lentils, and tofu. Also, calcium from plant-based sources is much better absorbed by the human body. In fact, as substantiated by Physicians' Committee for Responsible Medicine and other researchers, animal protein actually leaches calcium from the bones, resulting in bone weakness. As for protein, it's a basic building block of life, and it's present in every food. So if you consume enough calories, you are bound to get enough protein. That's why protein deficiencies are almost exclusively found in malnourished people. Besides, there are plenty of protein-rich plant foods such as beans, peas, lentils, nuts, seeds, soy products, and even many vegetables. There have been quite a few world-class vegan athletes and bodybuilders, ranging from 2-time Olympian Seba Johnson, a vegan since birth, to long-distance runner turned renowned bodybuilder Robert Cheek, another long-time vegan. Many have also sustained pregnancies and babies on totally vegan food and are healthier for it. Many of the world's largest and strongest animals like elephants, horses, rhinos, giraffes, and buffaloes are totally herbivorous, meaning vegan. Do they lack bone strength, calcium, or protein? Of course not.
Animals feel pain just as people do. You should know what happens to chickens, pigs, cows, sheep, fish, and other animals. Please take a few moments to find out about the routine cruelty involved in raising, transporting, and killing these animals.
The images that you are about to see are not isolated cases. They represent industry standards for animals raised for milk. Animals raised for milk are forced to endure enormous pain and suffering. They have been turned into milk-producing machines. Like all mammals, animals raised for milk need to become pregnant in order to produce milk. Typically, animals raised for milk are made to give birth to a calf every year, which means they are both lactating and pregnant for at least 7 months a year. Within 3 months of giving birth, a cow is made pregnant again, at times through artificial methods. Artificial insemination is a process by which sperm is collected from the male, processed, stored, and artificially introduced into the female reproductive tract for the purpose of conception. Animals are artificially inseminated by barefoot healers who ignore even minimum standards of care. Investigators observed that the artificial insemination guns were rarely sterilized, that syringes and needles were used repeatedly on different animals without being sterilized, and that the barefoot healers shoved their bare, soapy hands into the animals' uteruses, causing the cows immense pain and exposing them to potential infections and diseases. Cows and buffaloes raised for milk in India today are milked over and over using machines which are able to extract more milk than the animals would yield easily. Because workers aren't always paying attention, the machines often continue to run even after the animals' udders are empty, causing them a lot of pain. Buffaloes stand several feet deep in foul-smelling slush. They suffer from skin infections, foot disease, tuberculosis, and other illnesses. Bull calves, who are of no commercial value to the dairy industry, are tied up with ropes so short that they cannot even lift their heads. Very often these calves are sold to slaughterhouses and killed for their skin.
Calves are taken from their mothers shortly after birth. Their mothers often bellow frantically and search for them even after they have been sold for their flesh or skin.
Oxytocin is a Schedule H drug, which means it cannot be bought or sold without a prescription. However, its use in the dairy industry, although illegal, is rampant, as the drug causes cows to produce more milk. Oxytocin causes cows to experience severe stomach cramps similar to labor pains and weakens their bones. Under natural conditions, a cow can live up to 18 years, but cows raised for milk are only about 6 or 7 years old when they are sent to the slaughterhouse to be killed for their meat and skin. Cows are transported to states where they can legally be killed. The animals are shoed and then roped together in preparation for the harrowing death march, which can last several days. Handlers pull the cattle by ropes through their noses and twist their necks, horns and tails to keep them moving. They lead, or rather force, the cattle down embankments and in and out of trucks without ramps, causing the animals injuries such as broken pelvises, legs, ribs and horns. Another way handlers keep the animals moving is by rubbing chili peppers and tobacco into their eyes. As many as half of the animals will already be dead by the time they arrive at the slaughterhouse. The survivors are often killed in full view of each other, and instead of the required quick slice across the throat with a sharp knife, they are generally killed through hacking and sawing with a dull blade. It all comes down to pain and suffering, not intelligence, not strength, not social class or civil right. Pain and suffering are in themselves bad and should be prevented. Say no to that slice of cheese or glass of milk.
When it is time for hatching, eggs are removed from the incubator trays. The chicks are separated from their shells in a callous and rough manner by workers who just pick up newly hatched chicks, shake them hard to get rid of traces of shells that may be sticking to their bodies, and then toss them carelessly into trays. Chicks struggle to get back on their feet after they are tossed from one tray to another for sorting. They often die when their heads get stuck between trays or they fall onto the hatchery floor. One-day-old chicks are stuffed into crates and taken to ill-ventilated rearing sheds.
Chickens are the most abused animals packed into filthy sheds, often with thousands of other birds. Fumes from their accumulated waste burn their throats and eyes. Most birds lose their feathers and develop blistering, ulcered feet, and other ailments. They are pushed to grow such unnaturally large upper bodies so fast that their legs often become crippled under their own weight. According to scientists, a mother hen will turn her eggs as many as 5 times in an hour and cluck to her chicks while they're still in the shell, and her chicks chirp back. But on egg farms, hens spend their entire lives crammed into wire cages so small that they can't even spread a single wing. Because they can't use them, their muscles waste away and their bones deteriorate. Standing on the wire, their feet become lacerated. The ends of their sensitive beaks are cut off with a hot blade, causing them chronic pain.
During the process, chicks are transported from one carton to another and eventually passed to the worker, who quickly cuts off their beaks and tosses the bleeding chicks into another carton.
Some birds starve to death because eating is too painful. They never even see their own babies. At the end of their miserable lives, chickens are grabbed by their frail legs and wings, often causing broken bones, and stuffed inside cages to be transported to the slaughterhouse, where they are slammed upside down into metal shackles and shocked in an electrical water bath. Many escape the electric shock only to have their throats slit and be scalded to death while still conscious in the defeathering tanks. Many chickens are transported to shops where they are tied up together upside down by their legs and then crammed into cages. The terrified birds have their throats slit with burnt knives and are often put into drums full of scalding water while they are still alive.
How can it be that 95% of Americans feel it is wrong to unnecessarily hurt and kill helpless animals, yet 95% of Americans continue to unnecessarily hurt and kill helpless animals? Why the disconnection? It's time to connect. When you make vegan choices, you stand up for the meekest among us, those who rely entirely on your ability to show compassion. You stand up for farmed animals and refuse to pay anyone to harm them on your behalf. You stand up for the millions of wild animals who are displaced and brutally killed to make room for farmed animals and profits. And you help rebuild the wildlands they call home. Most of us have had the opportunity to get to know an animal. When you get to know them, you quickly find out that they each have their own personalities, their own quirks, their own ways. You can tell when they're happy, or sad, or scared. And sometimes we forget that this is true for all animals. And most of us have felt the unconditional love of an animal, that deep bond that seems to go beyond our human connections. We talk to our dogs and to our cats, and sometimes we connect with them more deeply than with anyone else. They love us, and we love them. You can feel that connection again and again by giving your love to every animal, those we call our pets, wild animals, and those who suffer on farms and in factory farms. Make vegan choices to align with your true love for animals. Expand your circle of compassion, and the love will come back to you 1,000 times. Vegan. Every day you are invited to make choices. Live your values. Change the world.
Being vegan is easier than ever. From sweets, chocolates, cakes and ice cream to curd, cheese, paneer, tea and coffee, almost every taste you are used to can be enjoyed in a vegan form. Leather, silk, honey, fur and wool can easily be avoided too. There exist plenty of easy to make or readily available vegan substitutes. For example, instead of animal milk, one can go for plant-based milks made from cashews, almonds, coconuts, rice, soy, etc. In place of dairy curd, one can use curd made from peanut milk, cashew milk, soya milk, etc. Paneer can easily be replaced with tofu, which is made from soya bean, and like all the other plant-based foods, it's cholesterol-free too. Instead of dairy cheese, go for vegan cheese made from cashews, tofu, etc. It's equally easy to find vegan options for cakes, cookies or ice creams in India. To find out more information about these options, join your local vegan group. You can also attend the monthly potluck get-togethers arranged by these groups in your city. Give veganism a go. Avoid animal suffering, save the planet and become healthy.